A 12-year-old rapper is launching a community campaign to fight what he says is injustice and excessive force. Police at Cumberland Mall arrested him for trying to sell some albums, and he is now facing felony charges. We shared this video from October 6th inside the mall. Corey J. was at the mall when his lawyers say a security guard started talking to him about selling his CD, and a Cobb County police officer passing by just involved himself. The cell phone video shows that officer grabbing Corey's arm.
This child, charged with nothing, not stealing, not doing anything whatsoever, but feels as though it is so necessary that he is such a criminal that he was to be handled by as a criminal on that day.
Police have maintained that the video here doesn't show the whole story and that the boy had been warned he could not sell CDs there without permission and that he would be arrested if he was caught doing it again. Corey J. still facing charges in juvenile court. As he works to get those charges addressed, he's also working with a national initiative to support youth who have experienced injustice. He says he has the confidence to speak up after what happened to E.J. Bradford, who was mistakenly killed by police as they responded to reports of somebody with a gun at a mall in Alabama in November.
He isn't here. I know it's a lot of people who probably aren't here that I don't even know about. So I have to be a voice for them and the young people who didn't get this opportunity to be up here today.
So the first step, he says, will be a summit on January 21st. Its goal is to bring together young people with members of the hip hop and law enforcement